The line was crossed the moment he smiled. Not a nervous smile, a satisfied one. My stepson stood in the marble hallway outside the courtroom, suit tailored too sharp for his age, voice pitched just loud enough to travel. He didn't look at me when he said it. He wanted witnesses. He married her for the money, he said. Everyone knows that. An uneducated parasite who couldn't build a life of his own. The hallway went quiet. Not dramatic quiet, the kind where people stop breathing because they want to hear more. I didn't react. I kept my hands folded, calm, respectful. The grieving widower, the simple man out of his depth. That was the moment he mistook silence for weakness. The courthouse smelled like old paper and disinfectant. Polished wood, cold air, power. I'd spent years in rooms like this before I chose to disappear. Years learning how men used language as a weapon and law as theater. My wife used to say courtrooms were confessionals for liars. She was right. He took his seat across from me, surrounded by advisors who nodded too often. His lawyer arrived last, the city's best, expensive, famous, predatory, and then something beautiful happened. The lawyer looked at me. Not a glance, a stare. His eyes narrowed, his jaw locked. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might sit down. He leaned forward and whispered, barely audible, "It's really you." That was when I knew the plan would work exactly as designed. They thought I was a ghost who wandered in off the street. A nobody who married above his station. A man grateful for leftovers. They never asked who taught my wife how to protect her empire. They never asked who rebuilt it after the first betrayal. They never asked why she trusted me with everything. I let the insult sink into me in silence. Not because it hurt, but because it clarified. When she died, I lost my partner. When he sued me, I lost my patience. The judge entered. Wood struck wood. The ritual began. The opening statement was a public execution. My stepson painted me as a manipulator, a shadow who whispered lies to a dying woman. He called me simple. He called me dependent. He called me lucky. The courtroom nodded along. I watched. I listened. I catalogued every lie. I remembered nights at the kitchen table when my wife cried because her son only called when he needed money. I remembered how she rewrote her will after he tried to sell company shares behind her back. I remembered her voice, steady and final. If he ever challenges you, she'd said, don't defend yourself. Reveal them. That was the breaking point, not the lawsuit, the entitlement. Inside, something quiet snapped. A clean break. No anger. Just resolve. The plan had already been in motion for months. I had withdrawn slowly. Let them underestimate me. Let them think grief had made me soft. I signed nothing. Spoke little. Moved assets legally, precisely, invisibly. Every system has pressure points. I built this one. I'd already ensured the board knew exactly who stabilized the company during its darkest years. I'd already transferred voting power according to instructions she left behind in a sealed letter. I'd already activated clauses no one read because no one thought they'd matter. The lawyer tried to cross-examine me. He stumbled. He asked about my education. I answered calmly. He asked about my role in the company. I corrected him politely. He tried to trap me in contradictions. That's when he realized I watched recognition crawl across his face like a slow infection. I answered one question with a phrase only one man in the city used to use, a technical term, obsolete, precise. His pen froze midair. He requested a recess in the private chamber. He finally spoke to me directly. You disappeared, he said, after the arbitration scandal, after the firms collapsed. I retired, I said. I chose peace. He swallowed. My stepson watched from across the room, confused. He thought this was strategy, legal maneuvering. He didn't know the ground beneath him had already given way. Court resumed. The evidence unfolded like a confession written in someone else's handwriting. Emails, financial trails, audio recordings. My wife had documented everything. His threats, his pressure, his attempts to force her hand while she was sick. The lawyer's voice softened, then fractured. The board members testified. The accountant, the trustee, the empire wasn't taken from him. It was protected from him. Panic doesn't arrive loudly. It leaks. I saw it in his hands first, then his breathing, then the way he stopped meeting anyone's eyes. By the time the judge asked for closing statements, my stepson looked smaller, folded inward. He finally looked at me. I didn't know, he said quietly. You could have told me. I met his gaze for the first time that day. You never asked, I said. You accused. The verdict was swift. The lawsuit dismissed. Legal fees assigned to the plaintiff. A formal reprimand for abuse of process. But that wasn't the punishment. The real consequence was what came after. The trust executed its final clause, his shares frozen, his access revoked. His position dissolved. He didn't lose an empire. He lost the right to touch it. In the empty courtroom, the lawyer approached me again. I underestimated you, he said. No, I replied. You recognized me too late. I walked out alone. The air felt different outside, lighter. Honest. This confession isn't about revenge. It's about respect. Silence isn't submission. Kindness isn't weakness. And love, real love, prepares for betrayal without becoming it. My wife trusted me to finish what she started. I did. And the man who called me a parasite now lives on the allowance of his own arrogance. That's the truth. That's who I am. And that's the cost of mistaking calm for powerless.